brother Crazy D, while we have a linguist in comparative linguistics in the study of the ancient language. Uh, do you have any specific questions while we actually are able to have this brother on here?
Yeah, my first question is, why is it important for us to know what the translation of the Egyptian language? Why is it important for American blacks to actually know that translation of the Egyptian language?
I think it is the most important for us, given our history here in America. So, I know this is just, this is, of course, this is information, but we know, but it just needs to be said so the context is understood. And that is that African Americans are a conglomerate, a synthesis, genetically and culturally, of various African people that were taken from different parts of West Central and Southeastern Africa to be enslaved and work here in the Americas for free and to build up this country. So this is how much we know. As a result of that process, part of the enslavement process was to, as much as possible, eradicate the memory of African people here in the United States. So we go through a series of, minor freedom events, in terms of the Emancipation Proclamation, but we know we had another additional 100 years of Jim Crow, Voting Rights Act, and stuff to this nature. So we weren't being taught our correct history and things here in the United States by Europeans. They didn't want us to have any access to that information that would give us any kind of sense of who we are, who our ancestors are, or to get any ideas of collective resistance. So with that said, you have many of us wondering, well, who were we? How were we like prior to the enslavement period? And of course, this has motivated a lot of our historians to try to answer, to work to try to answer those questions. Like I just had on my own show on YouTube, a historian out of London, Robin Walker, who wrote the book When We Ruled, And this is essentially what he's trying to answer for us in the diaspora, especially, is what did it mean to be an African person prior to enslavement? What was our sense of being, our sense of love, our sense of family? How did we approach spirituality? How did we approach technology and its innovations? What were our housing like? Did we consider civilization, et cetera, et cetera? What type of foods did we eat? How did we prepare our foods? What type of interactions did we have with other African groups and non-African groups in these periods? And so you can get a semblance of the culture and language of African people in the modern day. But this is, what you get in the modern form is a result of interactions with non-African people. And so, Christianity is the dominant religion, in Africa. The second dominant religion is Islam. So if you want to get an indigenous African perspective, in terms of spirituality and things, you have to find these pockets where people have rejected Islam and Christianity and held on to their indigenous religion. But their indigenous religion is still impacted by history, So the question is, who were we? What was our worldview and thinking process according to the Africans themselves prior to colonialism. So the ancient Egyptian culture becomes very important in that sense. So we have records of over 3,000 years of history with them, their own artifacts, their own language, their own thoughts, their own sense of relationships, their own idea of what it means to worship deity and ancestors. They have their own writing, mathematics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you get a glimpse of what it means to be an African based on their own wording without the interruption of external sources. So of course, to know a people is to know their language. And to once you start studying their language, you get some insights into the worldview and their semantics that organizes their thoughts. So that's one of the reasons why we study ancient Egypt. And then that's where the comparative analysis and things that I do comes into play. Because now, because in West Africa, for the most part, they didn't have writing. We don't get 3,000 years of indigenous Yoruba thought or Ashanti thought, etc. We have to assume certain aspects of their culture are old. But the only way that we can do that, more accurately is if they had their own writing. But if we can do a comparative analysis across the continent and include the ancient Egyptian, and if we find, on a scientific basis, these commonalities in terms of thought, in terms of practice, that is equivalent, that is found in all of these different traditions, then we can reconstruct the mother culture that gave rise to the modern cultures that we see. So then we're able to detect, what is indigenous in these different areas, and we can get a semblance of what it meant to be an African and human in the truest sense by this particular research endeavor. So ancient Egypt helps us to understand a lot of things because West Africa was impacted by the presence and the downfall of ancient Egypt. So I do a lecture called, The Fall of Egypt as the Catalyst for the Transatlantic Slave Trade. So even for you to understand the transatlantic slave trade, you have to understand Egypt and the Nile Valley and the history and everything that was going on there. And so there was a snowball effect that happened, which made these groups over here in this area, in terms of the Middle East and Europe, interested in what's going on in West and Central Africa and things of that nature. So, for a historian, that we got to understand that a historian, a linguist, an archaeologist, and a layperson, we're going to have different motivations for studying, ancient Egypt. But, all in all, it allows for us to get a better understanding of ourselves by proxy, and just to understand history in general and how we got to the point that we got to today. So it's just making the information come full circle, and we get a better sense of understanding of who ourselves, and then also what's possible. So think about like what the ancient Egyptians were able to do without cars, without mechanized, automated mechanized instruments and things of that nature. No television, no internet. Their sense of organize. How do you organize? Hundreds of thousands of people with no internet and no cell phone to call them to do a particular task and things of that nature. Like these are the kinds of questions that, we may be able to learn from. So if we understand how the ancient Egyptians organized those people and the kinds of culture that they had, that where they trusted one another to be able to do these kinds of large projects, then maybe we can see that in inspiration and learn from them. We probably have to modify it a bit for our time and our space, but to understand that knowledge in terms of human relations, that we can start doing some things ourselves. So if we need to create our own city, for example, in the United States, what are the legal ramifications or the legal paths to creating your own subdivision and city and et cetera, And then how can we get people to come in and be on board to build this thing from ground up? Whether we do it here in the United States or we go back home in Africa. So there's plenty of things that we can learn and why we would do it. But it's going to fluctuate depending upon your entry into the subject, and to an extent your profession.
All right, my man, Atharum Hotep. All right, Crazy
So
D, hook it up again. You got yeah, there you go.
Okay. Let's see if I can run this again, Chill. Okay. Being that American blacks don't, their lineage actually doesn't come from Egypt, right? Why do American blacks focus solely on Egypt as, let's say, the mothership? And is it because when we relate to people from West Africa, Nigerians in particular, I've had conversations with quite a few, and they seem to believe that their time starts in 1917 when they were colonized? And is it a discontent on our part and more of a dissension in the ranks on their part because we are able, as people who practice Pan-Africanism, we're able to go beyond what they appear to know? And so why do we look to Egypt as the main thing? Is it because it's a discontent and a dissension in the ranks between West African people and American black people?
Okay. Thank you for your question. And it's really kind of a complex answer. There is really no one answer that kind of answers all of that. So it's actually a continuation of the answer that I gave before to your first question. And because of that disconnect to our African heritage, one of the first things that when we're trying to understand our African selves, we look to works that are more easily available to us. So when it comes to knowledge of African people and history, the one place in Africa that has the most writings about it is ancient Egypt. The second thing, when it comes to certain cultural and spiritual things, is either going to be the Akan or the Yoruba people. So even when, like, let's say that I'm looking for a spiritual tradition to adopt because I've rejected Christianity and Islam, here in the West. I'm going to go to where the information is easily available for me to find out more about them. So it's going to be those three: the Akan, the Yoruba, and the ancient Egyptians. So you see some who have, tried to reconstruct the ancient Egyptian spiritual system based on the extant text that was left. Then you have those who adopt either the Yoruba system of Ifa or the Akan Arbosum system. And that's partly because, one, as I mentioned, that information is more readily available to those groups. But secondly, those groups have come over here and interacted with African Americans. So we have direct access to lineages and cultural systems in those areas. And so we got to remember that, like, it was over 50 different ethnic groups that were taken from various parts of Africa. And so, when we talk about the Temne, for example, or the Creoles, or, the Makua, these are names that doesn't necessarily just ring a bell for folks, because unless you're like me in Africana studies, and so, we know these names more easily, but then again, we're in the profession of it all. It's not part of the common, language of the people. So with that being said, we are not a monolith either. And so most of us don't flock to ancient Egypt. A lot of us deal with West Africa. And then there's some of us who study ancient Egypt very heavily, but still, as their living practice West African spiritual spirituality and culture and things of that nature. Like I'm one of them. I'm in the E5 system, also in the Bakongo system. But I studied heavily ancient Egypt. But I also study all of Africa. So anybody who's read my work, you're not just going to get Egypt. You're going to get West Central Africa, Southeast Africa. I do all of Africa, period. That's just what I do. So, we gotta be able to distinguish between those people who are like me, who study this stuff, as a form of interest, and as historians. And you may hear more of us because we're out teaching about this versus just a lay person who is just trying to learn and study anything about Africa, and their interests may be more localized in these West African places. Secondly, it's not accurate to say that we have no connection to ancient Egypt, because we already have records of ancient Egyptians, certain families and things migrating into areas where African people were stolen from and became the diaspora. So when we talk about Senegal, for example, like I spoke this morning about, Yaro Jiao and his records of the 6 migrations of people from Egypt coming in and either merging with or becoming the Wolof people in Senegal. And so if anybody knows anything about the transatlantic slave trade, the Wolof and the Fulani and the Seer, these people were caught up in the transatlantic slave trade. So some of us have biological affinities with them. And when you go into the Akan folks, they have oral traditions about certain families. Same thing when you go to the people in the Yoruba land and in Benin. And we have evidence to support all of that, because there was a continent-wide trade system that was going on. It wasn't as deep in Central Africa as it was, Central West and West Africa as it was in Central East and East Africa in terms of those trade relations. And so, as I mentioned before, this is why it's important to, this is one of the reasons I do my lecture, The Fall of Egypt as a Catalyst for the Transatlantic Slave Trade. There's a lot going on than what is being, normally told. And so the only way that you'll get this information is if you're a person like me who consciously searches journal articles, for example, who pays those paywalls to get those journals, and or who writes about history and tries to present this stuff to the lay public, like kind of the conversations that we're having here. So, for example, if you ever read the works of Dr. Felix Chimey, he's an African out of Tanzania who's an archaeologist. And all he does is excavations up and down the east coast of Africa. And so he has several books. They're going to be dry by our standards because they're archaeological books. And so, it's just a bunch of measurements. We dug in this place and da-da-da-da-da. But it's interrupted with, history and stuff to that nature. So they're talking about bones that they found, and certain artifacts and what layers. That's the boring stuff that the layperson is not going to necessarily read. But it's in those texts that you get those nuggets. And so, like in one of his texts, he demonstrates and shows the trade relations as deep down as Mozambique and ancient Egypt, and even further into the Middle East. And so this is important because, we talk about West Africa. However, again, you have West Africa as, a major place for Africans being stolen and brought, to the Americas. But you also have Central Africa, Congo, Cameroon, and then you have Southeast Africa. So now you're talking Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Madagascar. And so when you're talking about these trade relations between the Makua people and things, and Manomatapa in ancient times, they were going back and forth in the Middle East. This is how you get the so-called Cohen gene. People believing that they are Israelites in Southeast Africa because you had, merchants, people in the Middle East coming from the Levant and doing trade and, doing what a lot of people do when they do trade long distance. And what do I mean? People going out, they probably have families at home, but since they're doing these long distance travels and they're gone for a long time, they may hook up with some sisters in the foreign land. So, any of you, who have parents or stuff from the Vietnam War, you may have cousins in Vietnam because, a lot of the brothers, we're stepping out and handling their business in Vietnam. And so people do that even in modern times without the war. They just travel a lot and be in Europe and stuff and hook up with some people. And, we have a situation like that right now where Chinese workers who come in to help build some roads and stuff like this, hooking up with African sisters, getting them pregnant and leaving. And so, this is how you get the so-called Cohen gene, because these Hebrews and Israelites and whatnot traveling, down the East Coast, the so-called Swahili coast, doing trade and stuff and hooking up with local folks and having children. So our history is complex and all of it is relevant. It just has to be, understood first and then told in a cohesive manner. And so too many times we're getting fragmented information about our heritage, but not enough synthesis of how this over here relates to this over here. And so this concept of globalization is not new. We're more so in our third reiteration of globalization in terms of the modern era. And so there was a time before Egypt, and then there was during the Pharaonic and Roman periods that, this concept of globalization. Matter of fact, the people in China and India were trading with the East Africans. This is why Christopher Columbus and them was trying to get to India in the first place. Because once you kick the Moors out of Spain and stuff, you may have kicked the Muslims out of Spain and Southern Europe in that area, but Muslims still kept a stronghold in Egypt, in, Palestine and Arabia, whatnot. So they controlled that area of the Mediterranean and Red Sea. So you could not, just take your Spanish ships, through the Mediterranean and the Red Sea to go to India. They had to go around Africa. And it's because they were trying to go around Africa and got lost trying to get to India and get a part of that trade, that they found the Americas. And then because when they found the Americas, that sparked a whole, process of events that, how we got here. It's all interconnected. And so this is what has to be understood in this time. So I hope in this roundabout way, it goes to answering your question.
Now, and brother, we appreciate all of the time that you kicking in. You may find yourself having to answer a whole bunch of questions, but I know you don't mind because I heard you speak way longer than this, breaking stuff down. I do want to say, I don't know if we had Jaquan on here for a hot second. I don't know if he's still listening on YouTube, because I was about to say that we have one historian of Asarim Hotep on linguistics and comparative linguistics, and probably and my man Jaquan, who I just saw in, but now he's out. So if he's listening on YouTube, brother, come back. As far as I'm concerned, and I'll argue with anybody, the preeminent, he's at the top of the historians on the history and foundation of hip hop. There may be no one alive that knows more about the history and the foundations of what we call hip hop than Jaquan. I had the pleasure of being interviewed by him not long ago, as well as the pleasure of being interviewed by my man Crazy D. But if we could get Jaquan, I don't know if he ran out of power or he thought that he wasn't in the building. But if Jaquan, if you're watching us on YouTube, because we're now no longer on Facebook, but if you're watching on YouTube, come back for sure. Now, Crazy D and Bear, I know you have questions, but I just want to ask Brother Sar while I have him here, just to talk a little bit about, because when you talked about comparative linguistics that connects and sometimes actual physical connections that Africans have through various areas that they have come into contact with. I've also heard you speak about some things that they also leave behind, of called loan words, where you will go to other places and you find the remnants of other civilizations that were there because of what we're calling it. I've heard you reference as loan words. Can you speak a little bit about how loan words also help us know how people of Africa moved from different areas and left behind traditions based on these loan words?
No doubt, no doubt. Um, so we got to understand that, I'm a historian and scientist, and linguistics is just one of the tools that I use to kind of reconstruct history. And, part of that process is determining what languages are related, what speech populations are related to each other, and which ones are not. And it's really kind of a misnomer to say that, certain language groups are not related, because all human beings are related. But we should more accurately say what groups are more closely related, and then what groups are not. The evidence is not easily determined that they are related, or relatable. And so in that process of determining who is related and who is not related, we can tell by certain what we call sound laws or sound rules or correspondences between related languages if a word is native to that language or not, because of the way that it's structured, the graphemes, the morphemes, or fossilizations in the vocabulary itself. So, if you see a word like Hansel in the Yoruba language, we would know for a fact that that's a loan word, because the Yoruba have rules in their language where certain consonants do not cluster together in like T and S. So you say Hansel, like, that we know that is not a Yoruba word, because they like to do consonant vowel in terms of the structure of their words. And so when you see a word in English like Mitsubishi, there's nothing about that word that says it's English. We know that Mitsubishi is not an English word. We come to find out that it is Japanese, and it stands for like the three diamonds, or something like that. So I forgot what aspect of the word stands for three and what aspect stands for diamonds. But that's why when you see on the car Mitsubishi, the logo the way that it is, because that's literally what the word means. And so if we have in the English language Mitsubishi, that is evidence that we have interacted to some degree. Now, it could be a coincidence. Somebody could have just made up a word, Mitsubishi. It's highly unlikely, but, that's not impossible. If somebody just want to make up a word on the spot and give it a definition, that is part of human, culture. But, history tells us that, Mitsubishi is the name of a car company, and then you see a whole bunch of cars named Mitsubishi, we know that somebody in America didn't just make it up. The evidence corresponds with we've been doing some trade interactions with the Japanese, and we got several different products made by the Mitsubishi company. And so just in the same way that we can understand that, we can understand what is going on among the African people. And we can tell by loan words, like in the collagen language, they have a grip of Greek loan words in the language. And I can't think of them off the bat because I don't have my books in front of me. They're still in Philly. But, you know, Dr. Kipkoech Sambu, you know, does a good analysis, you know, talking about the ancient Egyptians and the collagen people who now live in Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, and parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo on the eastern end. How their oral tradition talks about them coming from ancient Egypt. They used to live in the Delta area. And so one of the ways that we can demonstrate that they are not lying is the presence of Greek. And so there's nothing that says that the collagen who are nomadic pastoralists was studying Greek and borrowed these words into their language. You know, these are ancient loan words coming from the Greek language. And at the time that they left is at the time when the Greeks were ruling Egypt. And so, you know, that's just one of the evidence of that. And this is how we use, you know, linguistics, and especially when we're talking about loan words, so that we can, you know, have evidence, you know, in addition to any kind of archaeology or processes and artifacts that tell us that, you know, two or more speech communities interacted with each other in the past, and, you know, what can we learn from their interactions? So I hope that makes sense. You're muted.
Come off mute, Chill.
All right, I was trying. It was not my buttons weren't working with me, but no, I appreciate that, and I've heard you go over that a few times before, but I wanted you to kind of relate that information to us. Brother Bear, are you still with us? You
Yeah, I'm here, brother. I'm here.
okay? You soaking some of this in?
I'm soaking it all in. I'm soaking it all in. As a matter of fact, he answered, you know, the question that I had, and that was, if we could see that if we're calling ourselves slaves and we came from West Central Africa in that region, when did the Egyptians migrate to that area to be, you know, to be captured? But he answered that. He answered that. And the brother, I'm telling you, I'm your student. So if you rather accept me or not, I'm gonna follow you, brother.
All right, Brother Shakur, I see you watch. I didn't know if you had a question or you just getting it in. Okay, you soaking it in. When I see people's hands up, I think they like a church tip. I think they're like, okay, I have a question in here that I wanted to.
No, I'm like brother Crazy D over there. I'm just like, just, you know what I mean, just being humble. I'm just receiving the jewels, bro. It's a time to speak and it's a time to be quiet.
All right,
time to be quiet.
I think Crazy D has a patent on that pose that he has right there. That's his signature thinking man's pose. Unless Crazy D has a question, because I'm gonna make some usage of this time that we have Brother Asar. He might be sorry that he jumped on here with us. But Crazy D, you had something else for him?
Yeah, Brother James Small, Professor James Small had talked about the Egyptians coming down and migrating into the West African people, but you clarified that, so I appreciate that. That's one. But I have a 3-part question, or it might be a 2-part question, because one part of my question in the first question, I had compiled some questions, so this might be a 2 or 3-part question here. How much of their culture, of the Egyptian culture, was actually ingested into and developed into the West African culture of Senegal, I believe that you said, one of the places where they were, because I don't, unless I'm wrong with something, I don't see pyramids going up or whatever. So did they ingest into the culture that they were in and kind of follow those cultural norms of West Africa to keep peace? That's one question. 2, again, about the discontent Not disconnect, but discontent, and then or what's the word that I used? I want to make sure I get the right thing. Discontent or dissension in the ranks. So our discontent in talking to Africans now that are in the West African areas in Africa, our discontent and their dissension towards us as far as the connection, not that we're disconnected, because we're always trying to connect from what I understand from dealing with people all the way from back in college all the way up until today and their thought patterns. And then number three, uh, isn't our mythos, isn't the American Black mythos enough? And what I mean by that is here we are, people who were snatched. We come over, we're brought over to the land. They bring the planters, the planters, the people who knew how to build civilization, the people who knew languages, and we built. We not only were the reason why America was built, but we're also the culture, everything that's in the culture today. Speaking of borrowing words and borrowing swag, I'll call it, everything that we do from, if you go back and watch it, because I'm a movie reviewer, so if you go back to all of the old movies, you hear our culture uh, in these 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way up to today. They borrow from us. Our culture is this, our music, from having fraternity, sorority, church, uh, upliftment groups, to our culture throughout, not only in music but movies, but music, all of the top music we created, right? The number one music that's global is hip hop music. Anyone who comes here who wants to make it from Africa or any place else, they do a facsimile of hip hop music when they come here to make it here. Our walk is stronger. Our talk is stronger. Our beat construction is strong. I'm just talking about just things in culture. Our ability to fight against ills and injustice is stronger. And then when you hear other people say that they were influenced by what the American Black was doing, isn't our ethos and our mythos enough? It's good to learn about that, but it's good to learn about where we were snatched from. But isn't our ethos in America, our mythos in America enough?
Yeah, that's a long series of questions. So I'm probably going to have you just repeat the first question, and I'll get the other two.
Okay. First question has to do with Dr. James, Professor James Small
Hmm.
talked about that. So you clarified that. So I thank you for that.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
of their culture, did they actually implement into the West African culture? If I'm
Mhm.
wrong or not, from what I researched, I don't see pyramids going up, or did they just intermingle in to keep peace? You know, like
Yeah.
there's a story that's told about when, because Thomas Jefferson said that blacks and whites would never be able to coexist together. So the back to Africa thing was starting to happen, you know. And as once they got to Liberia, the Liberians were like, well, you're uh, white, you're basically white black. Like, don't come over here and tell us about our civilizations. So did they go, and unlike that, and the wars started from that. Unlike that, is it that the Egyptians came in and just mingled in and on the cultural traditions of West African civilization to keep peace? That was my first question.
Okay. So again, another complex answer. In most situations, if they landed in an area where people existed already, more than likely they just blended in with them. And so when people are looking for certain culture facts in, West Africa and ancient Egypt, a lot of times they're looking actually for artifacts. Like, do we see a statue of Isis? And do we see, you know, Osiris and Set and, you know, Heru and all of this other kind of stuff? There's a few instances where a local deity of ancient Egypt travels to West Africa, but we got to understand Africans in general. And so when a community or a group of people migrate to a new location, it's kind of hard for us to imagine this in this day because we lost that aspect of our culture. But one of the things that you would do is to try to get the blessings of the local spirits in that area. And so if you are the newcomer and there's people already there, they're the ones who initially had the relationship with the spirits that belong into that area. So you would just integrate and kind of adopt into their system. If you land in a place where no one lives, it's your objective to, especially as the founder of the civilization, to build the relationship with the spirits, the localized spirits and things there. And so you start something new there. And so we also got to remember that ancient Egypt was like the United States back in the day. You have various different ethnic groups. Not only that, since the ancient Egyptians were an African people and their language and culture was already similar to cultures in West, Central, and Southeast Africa, it didn't take much for them. You couldn't tell the difference in many respects. And this is kind of the work that I do. Like, because, you know, there's some differences between people in Cali and people in New York. But it's not so different that the people in New York couldn't dwell and live with the people in California if they moved over there, because the cultures are similar. They all come from the same origins. Same thing if people in Cali was to come in you know, back to New Orleans. And so for people who know anything about African American history, all those Africans who made it to New Mexico and Arizona and California, they originate from Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana. So, you know, that's where all the peoples are from. So they're going to have commonalities with those people there. And all those people in New York and Philly and Chicago and all those areas, their peoples come from, for the most part, of course, we know that Africans were sent there earlier, but we know about these great migrations, you know, from Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, you know, Florida, Louisiana, those places, and those people moving up, you know, saying north. And so you got to think about that in the context of even ancient Egypt. Those people, there's people who, the ancient Egyptians come from places like Uganda, Ethiopia, Kenya, Sudan, etc. And they have commonalities with other folks who split off a little earlier out of the Sudan and went into West Africa. And so their cultures are very similar, even if the outward expression itself is not. It appears to be different. When you really take a look at this stuff, it's like, wow, this is the same thing. Matter of fact, there's an author, he has passed away, but his name is Jordan Ngubani. And Jordan Ngubani was a Zulu of South Africa. And he wrote a few texts, but one of his major texts is titled Conflict of Minds. And he was talking about kind of like the situation that you were talking about, but from a different perspective, in terms of the Europeans and the South African Bantu. And so what he's trying to do in this text is get at the crux of the conflict between white people and black people, you know, in Africa. And he concluded that it's ultimately a conflict of the minds, the worldview that motivates and influences and shapes behavior, and in terms of the different value systems. Now, so that's essentially the crux of the book itself. But there's a part in the book, where he talks about, because this book was published in 1979. So South Africa apartheid is still strong then. And, he gets exiled. And so when he was exiled, he came and lived in West Africa for a moment, and he even taught here in the United States. Matter of fact, Dr. Molefe Kiti Asante remembers meeting him in the early days, and he tells stories about Jordan Ngabani. And in this text, A Conflict of Mind, he was like, these ideas, because he's explaining Zulu philosophy, Zulu religion, Zulu culture and history in that text. And he said that when he, was forced in exile and went into West Africa, those ideas and cultural nuances and practices that he thought was unique to them in South Africa, he found the same thing in West Africa. And so, this gave him a new perspective in terms of how to look at Africa as a whole. And so we got to remember that, African Americans are, as I stated earlier, this amalgam of various African people. We created a culture because we were forced to as a result of slavery. And we were able to do that because of the commonalities in our cultures already. And it didn't matter where we came from, whether we came from Senegal, whether we came from Benin, whether we came from, the Ivory Coast, and from Mozambique, Madagascar, or Congo. It didn't matter. There was different nuances, but because of the similarities, we were able to mesh them very nicely into the different cultures, whether we're in Jamaica or Haiti or the United States, etc. So, so that's one thing. The cultures would be similar, that you wouldn't be able to necessarily make a distinction between them. And this is all the work that I do. And so, my latest text is Aluja Volume 2, which you can see right here. It's subtitled China into Religion and Philosophy. So it's 8.5 by 11 text, 550 some odd pages. And the whole text is about the relationship between West Central Africans and the ancient Egyptians and the commonalities between all of them. And I discussed the migrations and all of that in this text here. So that's that thing. And so, but in other instances where it's not simply a commonality of culture, you would see it in terms of rituals and priesthoods, and especially in certain crafts. So like a weaver's craft or a metallurgist's craft. And so that's kind of what I discussed. Like if you go to my channel, I have 2 lectures on the connections between West Africa and Kemet. And you'll see me discuss that and show, commonality. So matter of fact, I can do this. Let me do that. And this just will be a brief, and then I'll get to your other questions. Because I just want to give you one good example of what I mean. And so I'm going to share my screen in a minute when this pulls up. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to go back. Nope, I got to reduce that window.
And Brother Bear, I see you with your hand up. Soon as Brother Sar handles the multiplicity of questions from Crazy D, we gonna make sure that we get to you, bro.
Okay. So here is, for example, like people don't know that in West Africa, a common thing that you see in West Africa is cowrie shells. But cowrie shells aren't native to West Africa. They came there via ancient Egypt and Morocco, because that was the currency of trade in those days. And even up until, later on in between 1000 AD and 1400 AD, they were still using cowrie shells as currency. And so this is the currency in India and Egypt, and then, you know, for those who were doing the caravan trades between East Africa, Northeast Africa, and West Africa. This is where you get all of these cowrie shells. But you see it as part of the artwork, for example, in ancient Kemet. So it's hard to see on this here, but this is, and I go through a whole linguistic run of Amun in Ghana. So, you know, this is taken from a previous lecture, but I won't get into it right now. But just know for right now that Inya or Inyan Kapon is cognate with the word Amen in Amen Ra. And this is an ancient Egyptian rendition of Amen, the god Amen, and Amen Ra. You can see the sun disk and the snakes on the ram's head and horns. And then you see this little necklace right here. And what I mean is going to be hard to see is that you don't see under here that there's cowrie shells on under the necklace at the end. So, you know, you can find this particular motif in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford in Britain. So now we're going into the ancient kingdom of Kush. So this is like a small little amulet, and this is from Dynasty 25. You know, the so-called Kushite period, the 25th dynasty, and this is, you know, dated between 712 and 664 BCE. And so this is the god Amun, again with the cobra on the head and sun disk, and you know, you can say it's Amen Ra, and on top of this ram's head with the horn here. So we go from ancient Egypt earlier, and this is, I think, maybe New Kingdom, maybe. And this is the 25th dynasty, and now we're going into Meroe. This is in Nubia. So this is Amen in Nubia. So you see, or, you know, Amen Ra. Amen himself is already a sun god, but you see the ram's horn and on the ram's head, and the sun disk, you know, the sun disk of Ra with the cobra snake on it. And so this is from the Napatan period in the reign of Pianki. Again, you see this kind of broad necklace here that is worn by Amen here. We don't see any cowrie shells here, but we will see it in this rendition. This is for a Nubian queen, Amenashekato, in 10 BCE, between 10 BCE and 0 BCE. You know, she was the daughter of a queen and the wife of her brother, whom she survived. Her successor was her daughter Amenatore, who was mentioned in the Bible. And so, and this is a rendition of Amenashekato right here in the corner. But this is an amulet from her reign, from her jewelry collection. Again, Amen Ra with the sun disk at the top and the snake on top of the ram's head and horns here. But we see the necklace again, and this time you see the, now carved in gold, the cowrie shells. We do another one. This is a gold fusing glass ring of Queen Amenashekato in Meroitic period. This one's a little earlier, 35 BC to 20 BCE. And again, you see this kind of representation. I don't know who this deity is, but you see, first of all, let's look at this in terms of these gold chains. This is some hip hop stuff if I ain't ever seen it. Right here, you know. But you know, I'm not going to say that we were inspired necessarily, but you know, there's some cultural continuities in hip hop culture, you know, with Africa in general. But we see this necklace here, and of course, at the ends of it are these cowrie shells. Again, cowrie shells are not native to West Africa. They came via the trade and trade routes, you know, coming out of ancient Egypt and the Sudan. And so this is a source that I have here talking about one aspect of the trade of the cowrie shells in West Africa. It says the presence of cowries in Africa could be traced back as early as the 8th century. They came from the Maldives Islands in the Indian Ocean to West Africa through North Africa, again through ancient Egypt, to the Middle Niger in the 11th century, spreading southwards to Guinea forest and then to the Niger Delta. And they talk about the two types of cowrie shells, but I won't get into that now. So here's another text, by W.D. Wallace, on page 182. He says, cowries served as a medium of exchange and dahomey. These have been introduced from East Coast, the shellfish from which they are made not being found on the West Coast. So again, any icons that you see with cowrie shells in West Africa, that is not indigenous. And I hope I'm answering your question, giving you one idea of how the interactions of people settling and or trading becomes absorbed and part of the culture of West Africa. So these are one of those artifacts from those interactions. And although Egypt has provided almost the earliest evidence of the cultural use of this money, talking about cowrie shells never played any prominent part in the lower Nile Valley, which is not, because we just already seen in terms of the lower Nile Valley, in talking about Meru and the Kushites. The Indians who traded with Egypt used cowries for money. The Chinese, who also traded with Egypt at the very remote period, used tortoise, probably cowrie shells, for money. This system dates as far back as the 28th century BC. So cowries and things have been, used as money in ancient Egypt and things for a very long time. And so, here are two sources for that conversation. This is one of those necklaces, again, that you'll see very prominent in East Africa and especially in South Africa. These necklaces people still wear in Zimbabwe and in South Africa, and in Mozambique. And this has a direct connection to me because when I did my DNA on my maternal side, her lineage goes directly to Mozambique. So more than likely, she was one of the Makua people who were caught up in the slave trade. And, part of the issues that happened at the fall of the great Monomotapa Empire, et cetera, et cetera. So this is why all this stuff connects to us and why we got to pay attention to this history. But again, this necklace, and it has the cowrie shells at the bottom of it. But we see the same type of motif and emblems in Benin. So this is in ancient Egypt, these artifacts that you're seeing here. And so you see that, even though they abandoned the cowrie shells for this particular motif, they're still trying to resemble them in the metallurgy, because metallurgists from the Sudan, from the Kushite Sudan, traveled and settled into Benin and Yoruba land. And this is part of the guild, and so this is an early artifact, and here's a terracotta piece along the same lines, the same what you see in ancient Egypt. Here's another rendition. This one's a little later, between the 17th and 19th century, a brass metal. So they're putting their own spin on a style that originates in ancient Egypt. And so here's another one, similar to the one that we saw earlier on the right-hand side. Imitating the snake at the top. The ram sword. This is almond. And so this is a plaque with ram head, Nigeria, Benin. And so here's another, view of that same artifact that we saw earlier on the left. And it says the Apapa hoard is an important collection of medieval bronze jewelry found at Apapa near Lagos, Nigeria, dating to the earliest 16th century. So this is the 1500s. So remember, think about the time period when people are leaving ancient Kemet. They're leaving at the time of the Greeks and Romans, and especially the Persian period. All of this is AD, ancient, in terms of Egypt. And so you're starting to see some of these culture facts end up in West Africa because people are migrating. And so this is, you can find this in the British Museum still even to this date. So I'll end that segment, but I'll just giving you one example of what I mean. So I hope everyone was able to see that. And the second question was what again, sir?
Okay, thank you for that.
No
First,
problem.
the second question has to do with our discontent and the appearing West African dissension in the ranks. And this is what I mean by that, since we have time to expand. We're practicing and learning Pan-Africanism and speaking on making the diaspora, one with Africa not being 54 countries, but 54 states, and Africa being one country and being the place, the utopia, so to speak, where all of the diaspora from around the globe that was dropped off can go there and interchange and work together. Now, what I mean by our discontent is when I speak to Nigerians, again, they will say that their time starts in 1917 with the colonization of them, right? I even had a person on a radio show because I do freelance work and I shoot at radio stations to help promote their shows, to take them visual instead of just audio. And I was on one show and the person said that they were coming to America. This is a Nigerian now coming to America to teach. He didn't call. I call ourselves American blacks. He said African Americans culture, and I said because they don't have crime, they don't have this. I said okay. I said that's cool for people who aren't into film or haven't studied anything. But I told him, I said, well, if you don't have all of that, why do you have Nollywood that talks about drugs, pimping, the church, all that? So these pathologies are all the same because we're all human beings. I said if it's one thing, we could probably help each other. So when I say that there's a dissension in the ranks, because it appears that when the African comes here, whatever tribe they're from, they come here to try to make money off of the American black, it appears, and try to tell the American black that he or she or the group doesn't have culture, when in actuality you're running from a place. We were snatched here and we built this, and now you want to come here for opportunity, like you go over to England for opportunity, and the whole opportunity was to get the education, then return home to make this utopia, but you seem to forget about the Pan-African model. So that's what I mean. Our discontent, not us being disconnected from them, those who study, but our discontent and their dissension in the ranks of Pan-Africanism.
Yeah, as I stated earlier, we have to remember that African Americans are not a monolith, and that African people themselves are not a monolith, and that you're going to come across a number of personalities with different levels of education and knowledge about themselves, about their family, about their history in terms of a community and as a state. And so we have to keep that in mind every time we have these interactions, because I've discussed with many people from Nigeria who have the opposite view of that. And matter of fact, I remember, one of the Babalawos who initiated me into Ifa, he was also initiated along with this other Nigerian Yoruba brother. And that brother lives in the United States and lives in Houston, and he is a visual artist. He's like a painter. And, one of the things that he would always say is that, we thank the African Americans, saying they're the ones who made this land the way that, safe for other people to come and exist here and, and have the dominant culture and stuff to this nature. He recognizes that, but he may be different from somebody else who just don't know much of anything, because I'd have to question, well, first of all, was that person, was he a Christian or Muslim? How much does he really know? Like Nigeria has like 100 languages spoken, in that geographical space. And so we know that everyone doesn't deal with each other in the same way. Nigeria is an artificial border that was created in 1884 by, people in the Berlin Conference. And, you got to remember that there's just different levels of education. I had a roommate who was a professor at a school in DC and at Mason University, actually. So it may be kind of Maryland, maybe kind of like on the border of Maryland and DC. Someone from there can, who knows, can correct me. But he taught at Mason University. And he told me when he went to Ghana one year for a conference, that when he went to this conference, there was a number of PhD students in Ghana who attended the conference. And he was in a conversation with them, and none of them even knew that the transatlantic slave trade even occurred. Now, that sounds funny, because it's like, how can you live in Ghana that has these major slave ports that are now tourist attractions, and you have no idea that the slave trade even happened? And this is kind of the attitudes and knowledge of a lot of people in Africa. They really don't know. And matter of fact, there's a lecture that you will hear Dr. Joy DeGruy speak about when she visited South Africa. In this one lecture where she's talking about when she visited South Africa, she went into a village, and there was, it was a group of women that came. They were trying to, make connects and see how women, kind of join together and strive over adversity and kind of learn from each other from these different areas. So they went into this one village, and, everybody was greeting each other. You know how African people greet. And she said that, of course, she doesn't speak the language. So she had an interpreter with her and her group there while they were in attendance. So she says, hello, my name is Dr. Joy, at the time, Dr. Joy Leary. And, I am a professor here. I'm an African-American, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It was real short. But the interpreter, said this very long piece. So we know that, everything doesn't translate word for word necessarily between languages. But the amount of words that he was saying knows that he was adding some extra stuff in what he was saying. So, after, he had finished, she pulled him to the side and said, "What did you say to them?" And he said that I said what you said, but they were confused because they didn't know what an African American was. And so now he had to go and explain slavery to them, to these, so these aren't people who live in the city. These are people in the remote areas. So he had to explain what slavery was, and da-da-da. And then they started singing, "Welcome home," in their language, "Welcome home, welcome home, welcome home." And, it just goes to show that there's, still pockets of Africa that have no clue of what's going on in all these other parts. So when you understand that and understand the diversity of perspectives and things, we don't necessarily get too caught up because some people just don't know, and so that's our job, to educate them and bring them up to speed on certain things. And so we got to remember that this concept of Pan-Africanism, that's a collegiate intellectual, enterprise. On the ground, the people who are at the farms, the people who are in the markets, that's not the conversation. So you're not going to get that intellectual Pan-Africanist, there's power in numbers and we need to come together and do all of this. They're dealing with their everyday experiences trying to survive. And so a lot of these folks don't have this intellectual thing that we're trying to get to the grassroots for everyone to understand. And so, matter of fact, Sheikh Anta Diop wrote a book, Black Africa, the cultural and economic basis for a federated state. And he talks about in that text how we need to create a new African culture. So if you understand Sheikh Anta Diop's work, he was doing all that linguistic and archaeological stuff to show Africans that you have more in common, just like Jordan Ngabani realized when he actually traveled. So you got to remember that when Africans want to go on vacation, a Nigerian doesn't say, I'm going to go to Mozambique for vacation. I'm going to go to Kenya. I'm going to go to Ghana. They talk about going to places like America, Australia, maybe even China, Japan, etc. At the time that Diop wrote this text, there was no inter-African tourism. So, because colonialism kind of interrupted that free flow of Africans moving, because it was dangerous, you might get caught up and became a slave somewhere, they really stopped interacting and learning from one another. And so they weren't able to see those connections between their cultures, that the way that a historian could, reviewing a lot of records on people from vast different time periods and geographical spaces. And so that's one of the things that we got to keep in mind. So, what's the education level of the person who we're having the conversation with? What do they know? What is their orientation? And then we can make a judgment with more information based on that, and understand that, African people are not a monolith, and that we're not all going to approach it at the same way. That's why these conversations are important, so that we can bridge those gaps and start building. Because one thing that we do know is that while we have created something here in the United States, it is defensive. It is a response to the oppression and challenges here, which is one of the reasons why we want to look to Africa to see what is it like to be human without this overt oppression on us. And so that, what if we have to ask ourselves, who would we be if the white man did not exist? That's a hard question for us to even fathom, because we can't see ourselves. You can't even talk about an African American without talking about white people, and because we think in their language. And so we are forever tied to them. And so, the whole idea of Pan-Africanism is understanding the common cultures and common language and common struggle of African people. And that if we united, that, we can put on a large power, we can develop power so that we will not be the victims of this colonialism that we find from America, Arabia, and Europe. And so your third question.
Third question is, isn't our mythos enough? And what I mean by that, we were snatched from a place, came here. They didn't snatch the weakest, they took the strongest, which might be a brain drain on Africa today, which why they are easily still getting recolonized today. But they took the builders, the planters, people who knew how to build civilization, people who knew how to build infrastructure. We not only did that and built it, but we also, our culture is what permeates the world. All of the major music, we created that. All of the, speaking of taking language and borrowing it, and when you watch movies, because like I said, I'm a film reviewer, and you watch the films and you see they take all of the slogans and all of the sayings that Black people have, the mannerisms and everything, all the way up to today. So isn't our mythos and our ethos enough? It's good to learn about where we came from, but we made something that everyone wants to come to. No matter how hard it is for us, they want to come to that. We're the hardest talking, the hardest walking. Everything we create spans the world. our ideas of liberation are taken up by people in other countries and other places where the diaspora is, including the continent of Africa. When they talk about liberation, they talk about our people who did things here. So isn't our mythos and our ethos enough? We can learn about that, but we should be proud about where we came from, what we went through. Okay, it was struggle, but we live. We not only survive, but we live a little bit too.
Okay. Uh, I hear it, and I don't think that, again, because we're not a monolith, I don't think that it is overwhelming that people are trying to necessarily abandon their African American history and culture for that of continental Africa. It's more so, again, we're asking different types of questions. And there's, I don't know if you've been adopted, or not. You more than likely know both of your parents, right? And even if you haven't met your grandparents, they knew them, and they can tell you stories about the grandparents and any information we can get on grandparents or whatnot. And so, you got a sense of family. And so that's, of course, in our immediate. But as a people, as a culture, it's like there's a blank slate. Like if you go to certain parts of Africa, they can tell you 7 generations or more going back in terms of their family. But we can't do that here in the United States. Once you start talking about anything past the late 1800s, it's going to be very sketchy in terms of finding information. And so part of that journey is trying to figure out, again, who we were prior to how we came here. So we know 1619, and we were taken off of the slave ships. But that still doesn't answer for us where we and our family individual comes from, which is why like the DNA tests are so popular amongst us, to give us some kind of semblance of where our direct ancestors come from. So while we, may have been taken from West and Central Africa, that's a broad statement. Again, we had over 50, I think it's like 54 ethnic groups that were taken into the slave Holocaust. So, I can't belong to all 54 ethnic groups. I belong historically to one, maybe 2. And so, this is why we get the DNA test to kind of see where can we pinpoint our personal lineage in Africa. And so we're answering different sets of questions. So like on my dad's side, I know my dad's name. Now, I met my dad, of course. I know who my dad is. But I've never met my grandfather on my dad's side. I don't even know his name. Now, I have a whole book with my lineage on my grandmother's side, my dad's mother. And we can trace this going all the way back to Haiti, and with the record just simply saying father from Africa. I can do that on my grandmother's side, on my dad's side, but I can't do that for my grandfather on my dad's side. It's a blank. And so while, me and my brothers, we're grown, we have our own families, and we started our own history and things, what we created is not enough. I still want to know who granddad was, who his family was, what have I inherited from granddad? What nuances, good or bad? What was the history? How did him and my grandmother meet? See, my grandmother died when I was very young, and I didn't even know that the man that she married later wasn't my real grandfather, which I should have known, if I was paying any attention, because their last name was now Washington, but my last name was Johnson. So, I'm a junior. So my dad is Harold Johnson Sr., I'm Harold Johnson Jr. But the man who we used to go visit with my grandmother, his last name was Washington. And so, Rosemary Washington, and then they had a daughter, Daphne Washington. But my grandmother, my, I still call him my grandfather because that's how we knew him. My grandfather died when I was like 9 or 10, somewhere around that age. And then my grandmother shortly after. And so when I got older and I was told that that wasn't my real grandfather, both of them had already passed. And my aunt, her daughter, of course, didn't know about this history way before, her mother met her father and she was born. And then they're from New Orleans. And so I couldn't go back to the house because in 2005, what happened? Katrina, and washed the whole neighborhood, into the Gulf of Mexico. So I don't have records so I can't even go into my grandmother's, records and find this information. So, if you've been in that position, and I can only imagine for those who don't even know who their parents are, regardless of what you start, from this point on in your life, in the relationships and the family that you built, you're still going to be an aspect of you that wants to know who you are and where you came from, and how that history shaped, your current location and your genealogy and stuff to that nature. So I look at that as a kind of a metaphor and a simile for the whole African American race. We know we started and created stuff here. We call on Malcolm, and Elijah and Martin Luther King and Fannie Lou Hamer. We have no qualms calling them, these individuals out, and Khalid Muhammad and or whoever. We big up our Grandmaster Flash and Mixed Master Spades and all these pioneers of hip hop and Kool Herc and James Brown. We have no qualms whatsoever bigging up African Americans in terms of our culture and the civil rights and the Roaring Twenties and the Renaissance and things of this nature. Even our warriors who died trying to give us free, like Nat Turner and Gabriel Prassard and all of that. We know those individuals. We know that history. It tells a lot about us over here, but it doesn't tell us where our individual lineages come from and who we are and what we retained as a result of the transatlantic slave holocaust and things of that nature. So I hope I've answered to a large degree your 3 questions.
I mean, I thank you for the answer, but all of that history and our story that you just mentioned, I mean, that's why I'm saying, that's why I asked, wouldn't that just be enough? We came over here from nothing and built everything, and we're still in struggle, but we built everything. And if we're dealing with the people who may not know as much as we know because we were fighting to try to get over there to learn, practice Pan-Africanism and learn beyond like what you know. There are Africans that don't know what you know, right? What you've learned, to continue to learn, right? So what I'm saying is, aren't we enough? Everybody wants to come to us. We're sorority, we're fraternity, we're church, we're self-help groups. We're
But all of that comes out of those early self-help groups, come out of African quote unquote secret societies that were just translated, for example, into funerary organizations and insurance companies. And so that's a history that we have to know. So I understand what you're saying. It is never going to be enough for us because we already have the curiosity, and it'd be different if we just had no knowledge of our history. But we know for a fact that we came from Africa. Even in the European books that try to hide much of our information, they at least tell you that the Africans were enslaved, and came over here during the time, after Columbus and things of that nature. So because we have that information, the curiosity about the African cultures is always going to be there. There's no escape from it.
I
And
think.
so in this exchange, we got to remember. So just like they come over, like when I pledged, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, way back in the spring of 2002 at the University of Houston,
The
you
young
know,
man. It's a
on
you're a
my
young
mind,
man in the game.
yeah, I mean, yeah, well, according to the newscast, I'm an old head. I was in the last century. What I'm saying pledging, but the there was like my chapter at the University of Houston has a whole bunch of Nigerians, Igbo and especially Yoruba people in the chapter. They come over here and get initiated, into our secret societies. But then there's a lot of us who go over there and get initiated into E5, into the Igbo system. It's an exchange, and so this is what I was trying to say earlier. Even in Africa, that's always happened, regardless. And so you would see people from Nigeria get initiated into stuff in South Africa and in Congo, and then coming back and doing their own thing and integrating stuff.
All
That's
right.
just what it means to be Africa in general. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I do want to say, because I know that Brother Bear had his hand up, but we've been joined. Oh, and Brother Bear, real quick, I just want you to know, I always hold up books. When Brother Sar was speaking briefly, when he was talking about the meta nature, and he talked about the Seshu Mani meta nature group, I let you know that this is one of the books that that you need to get if you're dealing with that information. Brother Bear, you see it right here. But also make sure, just that that I support and try my best. Because, man, this brother right here, he held this book up. There's a lot of information in this book. I'm still messing around working with this book. Man, it took me long enough to digest it. And I love this book. Man, this the one right here. Now, both of these are books by Brother Asar Imhotep. But what I wanted to do is because as some of you can see, where you can see here, we've been joined by Brother Stereo, the Hitman. Brother Stereo is leading the team that will be debating Brother Sean, Sister Oya Ma'at, and Ankh, the God Killer. Brother Stereo is leading the team that is debating them. And so I saw his on my page, his nemesis, Brother Sean, said the Stereo was refusing to come in because one of the Amara squad members was up in here holding court. And he said that Stereo was afraid to come in. But Stereo said he was working hard and he didn't even know who was in here, what we was talking about. But I do want to bring in Brother Stereo. Stereo, while we have not, earlier when we first came on, we kind of talked about what led us to the debate that's coming up and what led you to try to say, hey, Sean, chill, call Sean, make that call. We're going to go ahead and do this debate. We hadn't talked about it since then. We've been talking about a lot of other stuff, and we're overjoyed to have Brother Sar join us and spread and share his knowledge with us. And of course, your man, Brother Bear is here. And you see your brother Crazy D up in the building too. Stereo.
What's going
Today
on?
is Tuesday. The debate is Friday. Are you prepared? Is your squad ready for Dr. Oya Ma'at, Brother Ini Eret Shan Kalfani from the mighty Mossy Clan Warriors, and of course, Brother Anka Kek, the God Killer. Y'all ready for this on Friday?
Well,
tell the people. I talk to you every 10 times a day, and you tell me about you ready. But
yeah, you just answered the question. How you gonna ask me a question and answer the question at the same time? You see, I just got moved deep. No, but we're more than prepared. And I won't call it debate. I think it'll be a teaching of enlightenment of things that people don't know, that they will be able to be enlightened information that may help them, and also help them to learn the technique of being able to actually know what they're talking about. So it's going to be somewhat of an educational, some might call slaughter, some might call I just had to throw that in there. But it's going to be an educational movement. I think it's going to be great. Actually, as per my opponents in the debate, you know, in a room of scholars, iron usually sharpens iron, and I think in this case, it's going to be very educational. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun, but we're more than prepared.
Okay, all right.
Definitely.
And like I told you before, that we've actually heard from everybody that's participating in the debate. And the other day, we actually heard from Dr. Oya Ma'at, but we haven't heard from my girl Kai.
Right. I
Miss
just wish I
Briella.
just finished speaking to her. So she's definitely she's over ready. She's asking us, are we ready? So it's going down. She's over ready.
Okay, anything you want to not well, first of all, not as many people now that would normally be the couple of thousands of people when I'm on Facebook, but I gotta start training them early to come over from Facebook to YouTube, but they'll definitely hear this on the replay. Uh
Well, I mean, I'm here now. They'll be on their way. You good?
so and for the people
Because as per the show that we did, opposed to the show that they did about the presentation of introducing us. Numbers don't lie. We killed the numbers. So I'm here. We here. They good. They'll be here.
okay. Stereo is pointing out the fact that the show that Ankh, Dr. Ma'at, and Sean were on, I want to say it said that we reached like about 2,000 people in the show that Stereo and Corey were on. It said it reached over, it was approaching 1,000, almost twice as many. But
There you go, D. Tell them, throw them numbers out there. Don't hold back.
I don't know what you're trying. I don't know what you're saying, Stereo.
I'm almost supposed to believe these is our chill's people. I'm almost there. I'm almost supposed to believe.
Okay.
I'm almost supposed to believe this is his group he studied with. See, what I'm saying?
Okay. Well, for one thing, we already know that I study meditation with Mudal. That's not even a question. I'd have held up two of Asarm Hotep's
Right.
books.
So I felt like the wind was a little. The
and I
wind
have
was
Oxbook.
Okay. D got a question, my dude.
And I have Oxbook. But Stereo, but people know, I've known you from way
Yeah.
back.
I was just kicking it. But really, though, we're ready, Chill. We're definitely ready. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, and what I was just getting ready to do was to let the people know, again, Auto Stereo is in this debate, and he feels that he's more than ready for this subject. That his day job, he is one of the top music producers out here in the game. So that his name, the Hitman, is not a name he just came up with for the debate itself. Just because.
And the CEO, lady, don't forget the CEO. We got to give my title.
Okay.
CEO, Transformers Music Group, Universal, Atlantic Records, as well as Sony. I'm all the way in the game. I'm almost the game, but I'm in the game.
All right. So Aunt told me to tell y'all, if y'all was making a record, then y'all might would win this. If y'all was, because you produce, Michaela can sing, and
tell him
Corey
he's
raps.
actually right, and tell him, by the way, we are making a record. It's going to be on record how we spank them. So it's going to be a platinum record. Tell him he's right.
All right, brother. And I was taking a quick, and I think that I saw Crazy D might have posted up something about how many people would take. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I saw something about how many people would take vaccine or something like that. So a lot of people, I won't say a lot, because again, we don't have as many people right now as we normally would have on the Facebook channel.
Right.
But people have been making their thoughts known on why you think you should or you shouldn't take these vaccines. But on Friday is going to be have to explain either way. We gonna need them receipts from everybody, and so hopefully we get a lot of this information. Okay, brother Asar said he had the jet. Okay, I don't know if he's still on. Are you still on? You want to personally say that you gotta bounce and give some words on your way out?
Yeah. I've been on. I've been online since 9 this morning, and so I have some other, business to attend to. But I was just saying that, peace everyone. Thanks for having me on, and I will see. I'll be in the audience looking at this debate and taking my notes. So I got to prepare for my show tomorrow. And I'm going to do something different. I'm actually going to analyze the Jada
Ha!
Pinkett Smith and the Will Smith Red Table Talk.
Really?
Yes. But I'm going to make it, of course, into, it's just not going to be like one of them gossip stuff. But I'm going to analyze it deeply because another book that I have is called Where is the Love? How Language Can Reorient Us Back to Love's Purpose. And so part of what I do is to analyze, human relationships and to connect, Black African, love and relationships to African liberation, and the growth in terms of the economy. And so there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from that table talk and just the situation in general. And some of that stuff I already discussed in that text that came out in 2015. So it's going to be within that context. So it's not just going to be, me doubling on the entanglement word, so to speak,
Right.
in that situation. But it is. I'm hearing all these analyses, and there's just something missing that I think that we can all take away from it. And so I'll be discussing that tomorrow night on my channel. So I got to get ready for that.
We'll be checking that out with you. Got any advice for Stereo? Because those are people that he going against.
I don't know his position. And so, if you can give me in like 2 minutes or less, what's your overall position?
Stereo, you want to do that?
First of all, I would like to go on record by saying, nice to meet you, Asar.
Peace.
Okay. Just basically, our opposing team is why not take a vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, that's the basis of that is all the information about where vaccines are going wrong and where they went wrong. So that's our platform.
Okay.
And technically, like not things that we're guessing, not things that we're assuming, but things that we're getting the information that's factual. So that's our platform. It's just standing on the truth and what we believe to be the truth and what we know to be the truth and what we can testify to be the truth about it. So, it's going to be a good, pretty good, I think, back and forth.
All right. The only advice I can give is what I would give anyone in a discussion such as that. Stand on the research, but make sure you understand the research, its strengths and limitations. And if you can stand on that, regardless of what position you are in, you'll have a very productive discussion. So that's it.
That's definitely what it is, And our main thing is that we don't want to give the public wrong information. You know what I'm saying? We want to definitely make sure that somebody and everybody can walk away with at least something that they learned from the situation, which is important. Even if it's the opposing team that know nothing. I'm joking. But we want to make sure they definitely walk away with some information.
All right, well, we're gonna let Brother Asar do his thing. Appreciate you. when we get you on, bro, I got a whole bunch more questions. I got personally been had like a zillion questions for you. You know,
Yeah, let's just set up. I know this was kind of just ad hoc. I just
right.
happened to be in the comments, but we set up something more formal in the future. Just let me know,
Okay,
and we'll
sounds
make it
good.
happen.
Appreciate
No
it, bro.
doubt. And thank the good brother for his questions from earlier.
I want to
Peace and blessings to you.
thank you for intelligent discussion where intellect was on
Mhm.
display. So I want to thank you for that.
I
Uh,
appreciate it. Appreciate it.
I'm,
Thank you.
I'm a fan.
All right, brother.
Thank you. All righty. Y'all be easy. Y'all have a good day.
All right,
Peace.
peace. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we did have the opportunity to get some good time with brother Asar Hotep, the author of the book he held up while he was here, Illusion Volume 2, right here, which I'm still current. This is a big book, man, which I'm currently reading, but I already had his Nesubiti, uh, King in Ancient Egypt, and a lesson in paronymy and leadership. Man, this book is dope, man. I mean, all his books are good, and he has a couple other ones, but this right here is one of my favorites that he has put out. So as you can see, as a linguist, especially in comparative linguistics, you know, Asar Hotep's a bad dude. He knows his information. He knows what he's talking about, and he's done the research to prove it. Uh, Bear, I know you had your hand up. I saw your blue hand up. Sorry that we didn't, but when Stereo got in there, I had to get my man Stereo in, and it just coincided with the time that Asar was getting ready to leave.
That's great. That's great. That's appreciative. All respect. But we're gonna have to get the brother back on there because I don't appreciate him throwing blows and leaving. I can't even scratch him not one time. But I'm gonna keep mine short. Much love to Stereo going up in there. He got me in his pocket. So
What's up, B?
y'all, Daggerstra, y'all better watch out and make sure you have your information correct. Because if I can throw it away, it's not going to resurface again.
All right. Well, it's going down.
That's from the mighty Stereo Hotel Akadagata team. we gonna make up a team name too, damn it.
Well, I don't think this team actually has a name, Stereo. Just individual members have.
The what they call them. I don't want to get it wrong though. The Warriors, what they call themselves.
Well, obviously, Sean is with the Masi Warrior clan
Right. So
and the
we on the
Kofi Pi Psi research team. But
we on the outside like Warriors come
okay.
out and play.
But Ankh is part of the pseudo killers, and as well as the Amin Ra squad, which Asar is a member of the Amin Ra squad, of which Dr. Mott is a member of the Amin Ra
Well,
squad.
I mean, we simple. We the hitman. It said all.
All right.
We the hitman.
It's going down, brother. So tomorrow, I'm gonna come back to you, Bear. But tomorrow, we're gonna hope to try to get as many of the team members on tomorrow for tomorrow's show. What we plan on doing, because we serious about how we're gonna present this debate format, and hopefully the plan is we will be joined by my brother James Lewis, who is the debate coach at University School, who will run down the format. And okay, Stereo, you practicing sharing your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, you could at least warn me, bruh.
Oh, my bad.
Or you start messing with my screen.
I was messing with your screen too.
Yeah, everybody. It changed everybody. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put it back on just one me can put my screen on while you playing around. But anyhow,
I just want to see how it worked. My bad. I didn't even cut you. Oh, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, no. But yeah, we're gonna have the debate coach from University School, brother James Lewis, is gonna break down all of the sections of the debate and explain to the teams and to the people watching the process that the debate will have on Friday. So it won't just be people yelling at each other, talking crazy. We're going by not the exact format of the public forum debate, because we had to kind of tweak it a little bit to serve our best purposes of what we're doing and who we have. But it is, for the most part, following the platform of the public forum debate process. So there we go. And stereo, both teams have the format.
Right.
So they've gotten a chance to look it over. And are you comfortable, stereo, with the process of how this debate is going to operate?
Yeah, I'm very comfortable. You know what I'm saying? I gotta shout out to my man Bear, my bag man, D man. I gotta say what's up to my dudes. So I'm very confident, and I understand the format is great. I think the best part about it is that it's time. The best part about it is that there's no room for buffoonery. So when they backed up in the corner, they can't just joke their way out or say something crazy. They got time. So now we getting down to the facts, the bare facts. So this is going to either help them or hurt them, but it's helping me because it's going down. You understand? We get down to the nitty gritty. Ain't no playing with this.
Right.
So I hope they ready. I hope they prepared. I hope the Mossy got thousands of years of information, like they say. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, again, and I was, and everybody knows when I first talked about this, I was uncomfortable with calling it a debate. I was calling it a discussion because I wanted to make sure that the format was what was going to dictate it being called a debate. And so,
well, I think,
go ahead.
I think after the whole thing, you might want to wait to say what you're gonna name it because the name gonna change
Again, because I've heard that from the other side. Dr. Ma'at said it wasn't going to be a debate. It was just going to be them teaching you. So I told Dr. Ma'at that day that I'm calling it a debate, not based on what the other two sides are going to do, but based on the format. That we are using an authentic debate format, and we're gonna stay to the rules and regulations of that format, like you said. So there's I
got a question for Crazy D real quick.
Go ahead.
Crazy D, what you got an iPhone? What's making your background do that? I think that's dope. I definitely want to do that with my background.
You got a green screen.
It is ancient. It is ancient American Black secret.
I definitely want to do that with my background for the debate. I want to have some wild in the back of me. I want it to be crazy. I'm gonna have a whole jungle in the back of me with lions looking out rush. You know what I'm saying?
Brother Bear, did you have something to say? Because we're gonna wrap this in a minute.
Right. First, I'd like to thank Stereo for just giving me my name, Bare Facts. There I go, right there, Bare Facts.
No doubt.
I just want to thank everybody that came on the panel, and I appreciate, you know what I'm saying, Kevin, from giving me this opportunity, and I would love to have a conversation with Crazy D, you know.
No doubt.
He shy. He put on that poker face because he have a lot of thoughts that I seen that he wanted to spill out, but he didn't. So I would like to talk to the brother for, you know, so get my number and everything. And peace and love to everybody. And thanks.
It's some brothers in the chat, in the Zoom, I mean in the YouTube chat that says Stereo is gonna forfeit.
Oh wow. They must be from the Mossy clan.
Yeah, I actually think they are from the Mossy clan. Let me look and see. You should, Stereo, come on, man. You need to be looking. You never look at the
I
chat.
don't know how to. I'll be trying to. I just don't know how to. I'll be looking, I'll be trying to find out, like, how are they looking in the chat? I think it might be good that I don't look in the chat, though, because I want to be focused. All that sideline and and all that stuff. I got my cats in the room like D and my man Bear Facts. They handle, you know what I mean? When you moving like you move for
Okay,
real,
wait. Okay, hold on. I'm just not looking at this. Sean, are you saying you were trying to get in? I mean, it's in the. Hold on, Sean. We're not gonna do that. It's in the. It's in the Zoom link is in the chat. Hold on. Let me see something. Because I'm now actually went back to. I'm looking at the YouTube where they said that you would go forfeit. Let me see. Hold on one second. Let me see. Even though Sean must not be. Wait a minute. Okay, y'all go ahead and talk to each other. Let me see what we got going on here.
Bare facts.
Yeah.
I sent you a friend request.
Okay. Cool.
Wait, I sent that earlier in the broadcast, so you'll see it when you go.
You already owe me, bro. I love my elders, man. I love them. And I ain't talking about my age. I'm talking about wisdom and understanding.
You know, that means a lot from the heart. Real. I appreciate that. You too. Them plants, when you dropping off on them plants though, and talking about what you was right there at your job. Something that people usually get just to.
Right. This is the one that he seen me eating. I'm at the on my. I'm gonna do it again. Now this baby.
What is that? What's that called? And what's it?
I'm gonna have to give. I cannot give that to you online. But I'm gonna give it to you personal because it's I'm gonna just tell everybody. I cannot give you the names because it's illegal for me to extract this medicine. But I can give person to person. I'm gonna give you the names and the information so you can research it yourself.
That's what's up.
Call me Dr. Hoods. Bare facts.
Bare facts.
Facts. Facts, text, email, and the can with the string on it. Know what I mean?
Okay, hold on. Now I've given just to let you know, I put the Zoom link in to Sean's DM, but I'm also gonna put it into again. The direct link is now in the YouTube link. So I put Sean, I put it in the YouTube chat, and I sent it to your direct DM. So I'm talking about stereo, not looking at the chat. Sean is in there, said, you see me waving my hand. So I don't know if that meant he was trying to get in or not, but I just put the link in the chat. And right now, if anybody wants to get into the Zoom before we shut it down, if anybody wants to get into the Zoom, the link is now in the YouTube chat. And I also sent it out to Sean's messenger DM.
Yeah, I told you they're gonna show up. I'm here now. Know what I mean?
Go ahead, brother Barry. Oh, they named you Bare Facts.
Bare facts. Real soon, people. Tag into the brother. We're gonna do an investment party. So the money that's either being donated or the pocket change that you have can actually go into an investment. So we either have like I don't call ourselves black, we're brown, a brown 98-cent store in 3 different cities. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna network that because it's time to put our money into works instead of just spend it on unnecessary things.
Okay. Sean said body bags is on the way in the chat stereo. Sean said the body bags and toe tags. Or actually I threw in the toe tags because it rhymed. But he said the body bags were on the way. So I don't know if that means that he's also coming into the Zoom, but we're gonna give him a minute.
Tell them they already in the corner waiting. You ain't got to bring this ain't BYOB. They already here.
The body bags are already in the
corner.
Yeah,
this not BYOB. This ain't bring your own body bags. It's already some in the corner waiting for them.
All right. Well, I do want to ask brother Bear. We're gonna get back to you, Stereo. I
I
want
know.
I want to ask brother Bear. Uh, you heard a lot today, and we didn't really get into, other than initially get into the upcoming debate on Friday. But I know that I know for a fact that you riding with the hit men, with the hit team Hitman. So
Right.
you got a good feeling that the squad you're rolling with is gonna prevail.
Feelings is like a belief they can change. These are facts, bare facts. They finna, man, listen, everybody that's going to be in the chat on the opposing team, I ask you, when you go here and lose, don't be ashamed to say that you lost. Please don't. So I know for a fact that they're going to win this debate and give everybody teachings and solutions on what need to be done next.
Okay, all right. Okay, you got good faith, and this comes from a brother who been chasing brother Unc down for 2 years. So Unc in his information and his debate style is not new to brother Bear.
Right,
So
right.
that's strong. That he's
And that's
saying that stereo team Hitman is gonna prevail.
and that's the code effect that I have on them is I've been studying them. They haven't been studying me. So I know his tactics and I know his ways. And listening to stereo and looking at the way that they're coming in this, like I said, I'm gonna just be sipping on my Sprite, eating on my popcorn, and waiting till it's over.
And chewing on your plant.
And chilling on my plant.
All right, it's stereo. That brother has a lot of faith in you. He said it's not belief, it's knowing. He doesn't believe that you're gonna prevail. He says he knows that.
Cause you know, every once in the blue moon, a god arrives on planet Earth. You know what I'm saying? And it shakes the earth. It moves the whole world. It becomes what they call. I think some call it a what they call it. Some use the word paradigm shift,
Okay,
if you
it's a
may.
paradigm shift coming.
You know, and sometimes this happens when something outrageously immaculate and powerful comes to earth. And you know, that day happened a long time ago in 1969, June 20th. You know what I'm saying? A child was born, you know, and it just moved the world. So, you know, to come up against such a power and such an understanding and such a view on life that's totally transparent, it's hard to fight an enemy like that. It's hard to come up against something like that. You have to be born in the same, almost the same fashion, and it doesn't happen often, you know. And you have to understand with that type of person and power that's born, it becomes a ubiquitous spirit. So it's hard to put your hands on the ubiquitous spirit. So they're in trouble.
All right, now I would be remiss if I did not say that, when you said every so often that God shows up. Okay, you do know on the other team they got a dude called the God Killer.
I
I'm
mean, you
just
know,
I'm just saying.
to me, words without action means nothing.
Okay, all
So
right.
until I see this actual God being killed or a God that was killed, I can't understand how that name became even, you know,
Right.
something other than I couldn't fathom that.
Because it may be a dog killer, but not a God killer.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I can't fathom that until you show me, for somebody to tell me to bring my briefcase to show, receipts. I need a receipt on that.
Well,
Yeah, what
maybe
what What
Go
God
ahead,
he
Bear.
killed, huh?
You know, that's a powerful statement right there.
Well, I will say this: if Brother Bear has actually been following Ankh for 2 years, that he should have at least a few times heard Ankh break down uh, his interpretation of God Killer, uh, more specifically
Yeah,
the real black atheist, which
yeah,
is the
yeah.
more official title that he uses and to explain why he refers to himself as the real black atheist as opposed to just an atheist.
Right.
Well, you
I'm
know,
Yeah,
sure you've heard him break that down quite a few
yeah,
times.
but
yeah. I
but
know. I
but
know his.
before you say that, Bear, watch this though. You heard him break it down, right?
We don't know
Right.
yet. He didn't answer
Yeah,
yet. I don't know if he
I'm,
has.
I know.
only
I
reason,
know exactly what he's talking about.
only reason I'm saying this before he say this, because watch this. It's gonna be like magic. If you're killing something that in your mind you're saying don't exist, you're actually killing nothing.
Because you admitting that it
Okay,
exists.
now you can say what he said.
Yeah. See, but he broke. As far as what I know, good business. As far as what I know, uh, um, he's basically talking about that little spook god that everybody, these Christians and things like that, that they're coming with. That's what he's talking about, the God killer, that one. But far as the guys as in the body itself, we are guys in flesh. We are the guys. He ain't killed not one of us.
My point exactly. So if you don't believe something exists, how can you kill it?
Well, again, we're not. I'm not here speaking for what.
See,
What,
this is why. This is exactly why
what I'm
they're going
saying
to
is
lose
what
them
I'm not
people. This is
what I'm
what
not
I'm
going to
trying
do is start with a faulty premise of what he
right.
thinks that is being killed.
Exactly.
So so I would have to let him explain
But
what
see,
he thinks
this
by
is
what's being killed
with
or what he
right.
feels is different about being, as he terms it, a real black atheist. But I'm gonna let
So
you go
so with
ahead and rock.
yeah, with that being said, this is a perfect example why they can't win. You have to, in order to debate or even talk on a platform, everything has to be existent. You have to know for a fact that it exists. You can't go with things that you're just saying because it sounds good. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? You have to know that things exist, and you have to know the reality of the things that exist. It's almost like seeing Nicki Minaj on TV, and you're like, wow, Nicki Minaj, she's a star, she's a superstar. And then you seeing her at home, and you're like, the whole glimmer and glamour is gone because that's not her for real. It's just what she portraying to be, what she's being as far as an artist. But when it all wipes away, you just a normal individual at home being a human being. So if you could deal with the reality of being a human being first and understanding that part, then you could deal with the other part. But this is the whole situation. So when you come in like God killer, you already putting yourself on such a pedestal in the game, but you only to be knocked down off the pedestal because it's a fictitious pedestal.
Hey, watch this. The word atheist first arrived, I believe it was the 2nd century, and it didn't mean don't believe in God, period. It means I didn't believe in your God. So that kills his name, his infrastructure of anything of not believing in something other than him.
They're not ready. See, this is whole thing. You hear
Okay,
my
hold
point?
on, brother Bear.
They're not ready.
Brother Bear, now you in trouble because guess who we have coming in the room?
Did I pull him in here?
No, I'm just playing.
Exactly. See, that's what guys do.
I'm just
But see,
playing. You didn't
that's
hear the
how
music.
strong.
You didn't
That's
hear the
how
music.
strong. That's how strong Chill for his team. He just want them to go up here.
No, I just,
So
I just wanted to see how it was gonna look like. God is in here. No, but no, Yonk's not in here. But
Yeah,
no,
but
but
much
that's
love to the brother
all I'm
regardless.
saying is, I won't give the whole game away. But what I will say is that it's just like anything, man, in life. You want to be something, and in the back of your mind, it's a possibility that it won't happen. And that's me all the way. I'm a 50-50 kind of guy. I know the worst, but I'm shooting for the best. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, you know, you keep the best way back there. Yeah, we know the worst could happen. You keep the worst way back there. We know it can happen, the worst, but we shoot for the best. So at the end of the day, when I hear them speak, and this is real talk from Sean to the God Killer, it's that they stand on what they stand on, but they're not looking at the whole story. But at the end of the day, I'm not here to help them, you know, win. So I just want them to understand that, just be prepared to, you know, accept some truths in this session that they might not be willing to prepare. See, that's all where it all started. Humiliation is the key to everything. And if you can't be humiliated, you can't live life.
All
And
right.
my,
That's
I,
a
also,
and my
fact.
I
one
want y'all to
question,
recognize how dope that picture is that
D got up.
Crazy
I
D done
know,
threw up there.
man. That's
He
dope.
threw that one on us and just leaned back. I never seen that one. He just threw that one up there like, y'all go ahead and talk about, y'all see
That's
this right
fire.
here.
I got to call D on the sideline because I need to know how to do all that. I need to, that's fire. I like that. I ain't afraid. When I do it, yeah, I got it from D. I'm letting the world know I ain't one of them guys. I like something, I need that.
All right, go ahead, Brother Bear. We're
I
going to wrap this up.
okay, I just have one question for the debate. You know, I ain't gonna be able to be. I'm not gonna be on the panel or whatever. But for the God Killer and Shy, after y'all lose this debate, brother, are you going to be able to accept it and educate the people on the education that was brought to you that
On
won?
the
Or
new
you gonna
knowledge that they got.
yes, that because we need solutions. We can't just keep going and debating and people still
Facts.
thinking how they thinking. We ain't
Facts.
getting nowhere.
Well, you may be able to ask them that tomorrow. We're gonna do the rules reading, and I guess we can also call it a weigh-in of sorts.
Okay,
Right.
I hope that question.
I definitely still wanna keep this as professional as a debate as possible. You know, it's cool to talk it up a little bit, but like what you just said, where everybody kind of, you both of you guys just alluded to, the whole point is to come away with some real information that we can use. Just go make us safer and healthier for us, for our children, for our children's children. So hopefully we can walk away from this. I'm charging both sides, both teams, with the responsibility of bringing real information that's going to benefit us and our people
Facts.
and our children and our community. I expect for
Facts.
both sides. Hopefully, that's the goal of both sides, to bring that information that we can hopefully rely on, we can move with, and that we can pass on to our community for us to be a healthy community. So hopefully both sides know that that's the point of this. I'm sure that they do. Uh, you know, we having fun, and we want people to pay attention to this. And
Facts.
truthfully, I could have done this on Facebook and had a lot more viewers initially, but I'd rather do the YouTube version, for one, no doubt, to build my YouTube platform, but two, YouTube is a better vehicle to share and to connect other people with, off of the, not just within that YouTube platform. A lot of people can't get those Facebook links. I mean, if they're on Facebook, but you can get that YouTube link. People, you can utilize it. You can do many things with it, and it's a better vehicle to get out information after its time has passed as a live event. So hopefully this is going to be something extraordinary that people are going to learn from it. Let me check before I do the sign off and let everybody sign off. Let me see if there's anything else in the chat other than
What
body
happened to
bag.
Sean?
And okay, Sean is not. Sean won't be coming to us.
But I'm scared that
Body
I
bag.
couldn't get in. But he yeah. Mhm.
He couldn't
Can you
open that
say?
body
Okay.
bag.
Okay,
See?
hold on. Okay, okay. I got to see. I'm getting confused. I've got too many pages open. Yeah. No, Sean was working, but he said he'll see you.
Mm-hmm. See, that's what you call putting the cart before the horse. See that? Popping all that.
All right, but what we gonna do is we gonna go with Crazy D on some last words for him. We go with Brother Bear, who we now known as the Bear Facts. And then we gonna go with Brother Stereo, the Hitman, to let us know what's about to happen coming up in this debate. And then I'll just pretty much do a Russell Simmons and a quick one and be out of here. Go ahead, brother Crazy D.
First of all, chill. This was a great show. So much information that was disseminated, right? I mean, Asar, he's the truth. You know what I mean? I'm hearing him. You know what I'm saying? He was able to ask every question. There was no ad hominem attacks, no circular, false premises put across to shift the discussion. Just straight ahead dissemination of information. And so that's what I'm going to love about this debate, because you put this structure, you took it and modified it for your platform, and this structure is going to revolutionize debate between the conscious pro-black medical community. I can see all this happening now and on this new platform. So I'm looking forward to it. It's not going to be, because of the way you did the format, it's not going to be any ad hominem attacks, no circular false premises put through to shift the goalpost, right? So kudos to you. Kudos to Bare Facts. Of course, Stereo, you're doing your thing, you know. Um, I'm just more than ecstatic to be here, to hear the static and hear the smooth transmission of audio and visual, putting across information to the masses. And I appreciate you, Chill.
All right, I appreciate it, brother. Wouldn't have been able to do this one without you, because you definitely was push push this ship a little bit on this beach that kind of got this started. Bear done picked up a name hanging out with the Chill Talk on the Chill Talk platform. He done came up on Bear Facts. All right, Bear Facts, talk to us on the way out.
Number one, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you for having me. It took me a long time to get on a platform that really means something, and I believe because of my attitude. You know what I'm saying? When I get on other platforms, they say something crazy I'm from Watts, so I just. But now that I calmed down, I drew the right platform to me, and I appreciate you, because even though the people are saying certain things, there's no high level of disrespect. You know what I'm saying? And that's very appreciative, because regardless of the opposing team or the team that have the facts, someone can learn from non-arguing and always. That's how the people learn. I like to appreciate Crazy D for even showing up, because it looked like the brother got so much knowledge in those locks. Well, can I just cut off one and put it up there to learn? You know what I'm saying? It's Stereo, man. That brother is very needed. And this is the thing, that me dealing with energy, I know good and well, we met before we came on this planet. So I appreciate all you brothers. And I know that the community is going to learn from this platform, and we're going to advertise it and put it out to it be the best platform to a network. Just say, here, come on, you're going to be on CBS or something like that. So we got you, brother, and I thank you and appreciate you. And love to every fan, I mean, every person that's seen this and watching this, spread it out, because we taking off.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, I appreciate it. My son got his baby locks growing. Come here, Daniel. Stick your head in here. My son got his little baby locks growing up in there. Look at that. All right. Young Daniel son, young Toussaint in the building. All right. Stereo, take us home, bro.
First of all, that boy looks just like you, Till. Damn. He look like a young Till. Wow. Um, definitely, pardon me? Yeah. No, oh, maybe so. Definitely, I appreciate you guys on this platform for sure. Barrett, I appreciate that. You know, I would just want to say that it feels great to be able to be on a platform where I can get loose with the knowledge, because usually it's among scholars, my people who I surround myself with, and it's usually surrounded by cats who think just like I think, like-minded dudes. So to be able to display this is like Chills. It's the first public display that I'm able to do this on. I used to go on Facebook and go crazy. When I got the CEO title, I couldn't go on Facebook no more and go live. I had to change my tone. So to be able to be on a platform where I can exercise the knowledge and the truths, that I stand on, I think is great. Since I was a kid, just real quick, every time I go to church, oh, what God's blessing, brother, what you running from? You should be a preacher. I mean, everywhere I go, when I was like that, when I was young, until I realized that wasn't the thing, what I mean, as far as the church. But I know I was special since I was growing up. I knew I was enlightened by God. I used to talk to him when I was young by the universe. I don't even like to say God. That's man made that shit up. But by the universal person who or being who created all this. So that's why I'm so quick and so strong on the truth that I stand on, because it ain't like I'm guessing. It ain't that I'm wondering. It ain't that I'm thinking. It's that I know for a fact what I'm talking about. That's why it's hard to be combative in a debate with me on this type of level. And when I say all these guys who got books, I think it's great. But when I say that they don't have a chance, I'm not saying it to boast or brag or play with them. I mean, literally, they really don't have a chance. They're going to see on the day of, but they really don't have a chance. And they probably like, this dude, how he can say that? He don't know. He ain't got a book of that. They really don't understand the divine order of things when it's a divine order of things. You feel what I'm saying? And I believe the universe uses people for a reason. You know what I'm saying? And as fun as it is to me, as simple as it is to me, and as easy as I can do with my eyes closed, it ain't me. It's not me. It's not because I'm that guy or I think I'm that guy. It's the universe, man. And that's all I ever wanted to do and all I ever done in my life was speak the truth. And when you speak truth and facts, you will watch a person all day try to fight that, and they can't do it, but they gonna go and go and go and go, but they can't do it. When the facts are facts, you can talk to you blue in the face, but you can't be the fact. And that's the very thing that's gonna just annihilate these guys. And it's not even a joke. I'm serious. It's gonna annihilate them. So whatever they think they got up their sleeve, whatever they think, they gotta know they working with something from the elements of the universe. This ain't just me talking as a man. This is from the elements of the universe. I'm coming strong. My team is strong. I didn't pick my team. My team picked me because I knew who to call, and I wasn't even prepared for none of this. You know what I mean? So that kind of tell you right there, like, this is all in divine order. That's it. Until I appreciate your play. Man, I think you dope as always, Al. You know that. You my dude. I think you're the dopest in the world. And come on, man. I don't expect no less from you, my man, period. Because like I said, your whole life I looked at you, man. You always been on top of your game, period. You know what I'm saying? Crazy D, my newfound friend, that's my guy. You know what I mean? We think a lot alike, and he teaches me. He showed me things. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Bear. He showed me things. So, when it's just like that, when you're doing something in this divine order, everything comes at you and falls your way, and everybody comes into play. It's just like, it is what it is. So, with that being said, thanks, Chill.
All right, bro. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate the brothers that we have here. Appreciate brother Shakur from joining us from like the emergency room or something like that. So
Oh,
hopefully that brother, I'm gonna check in on that brother to make sure that he's okay, and that everything turns out well for him. Uh, Also, who else do we have besides the SAR? Did somebody else come on? That was
Yeah,
it. The action.
the guy that was in a nursing home or
No,
nursing room.
that was Brother Shakur. That was Brother
Oh,
Shakur that
and
came on.
aside,
Yeah, and of course, anytime you can get a Sarum Hotep on to talk about what he talks about, man. This brother opened up a whole new lane, the way he deals with not just linguistics but comparative linguistics of African languages. I've seen that brother go in with the OGs of the game, and always has his information, his study, uh, information that, and he knows what he's talking about, and can walk you down that path. So that brother, anytime you can get him on the platform, is going to be well worth the time to just listen to a Sarum Hotep build. And that's actually was the first time that he's been on my platform, and probably our first time speaking even virtually face to face. I did see him in Harlem when we went to the Harlem that was going to be the debate of has the Medu Neter been deciphered, brother Fairfax. But that is, I did meet him and just talk to him briefly there. But yeah, no, tip top in what he does as part of uh, his own research. The Shemsu Haru research team, they put in that work. He puts in that work, and I'm glad he was able to take some time to come on here. Hey guys, tomorrow, listen, the trick is gonna be is, we pretty much have spoiled people going live on Facebook. So the trick is to get them over to where it's going to go down at. So we'll do this again tomorrow at the reading. We're going to go over the rules and regulations of this. So this is going to be totally transparent, no surprise, or did I do something at the last minute? Rules and regulations have been shared with both teams. Both teams have it. They agreed with it. It's favorable to a concise and coherent dialogue and sharing of information. And hopefully it serves that purpose. But again, just to show that, we're serious, we having the debate coach from University School is hopefully going to be with us to kind of explain some of the nuances of from his perspective on what should occur or what the team should look at or what should be their goals per the whole debate area, or how people deal with it in debates. Now, certainly each team can take that information and do what they want to do with it. But, we will have an expert in the field of debating on hand to kind of give us a rundown, hopefully a rundown of each round in each section and how it's supposed to go. So I appreciate you guys. We up out of here. I'm gonna talk to my mama after this is over like normal. She gonna be talking about how Crazy D done put up a new thing and then got his polls by he done put up the new thing, and she gonna be talking about my man Bear that they ate some more plants. All right, y'all. We up out of here. I'm throwing up the deuces. We gone.